Hey, I'm Shaye Wanner, and you are listening to the Casual Cattle Conversations podcast. Whether you are a seasoned rancher or just curious about the cattle world, this podcast dives into the stories, science, and strategies shaping the future of ranching. Let's get started and keep your herd ahead of the herd. Today we are visiting with Katey Johnson about addressing consumer concerns as a rancher who sells to local farmers markets and ships beef across the country. This is going to be a little bit of a shorter episode, but it's full of insight and great reminders of how we as ranchers can address these consumer concerns, even when we think they're a little wild and frustrating to hear. But with that, let's visit with Katey. Folks, are you ready for more conversations to push your ranch to the next level and keep you thinking about how you can improve as a ranch manager? If you're thinking, heck yeah, then you need to join my free Facebook group, Rising Ranchers, where you can connect and learn from other ranchers and experts, as well as access additional ranching resources. You can find the direct link in the show notes. Well, Katey, first of all, I think it's just going to be really fun to talk to you again. It's been over a year since we've met and been able to engage, but very much continued that friendship over social media. So it's good to see you, and I think we're going to have a fun conversation. But more importantly, thank you for joining today, and you're going to be sharing your perspective with my listeners. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Shaye. It's so good to see you again. It's an honor to be here. Thank you for asking me.
All right. So to kick it off with my favorite intro question, to help the listeners get to know you a little better, can you tell us why you bet on the beef industry?
Why I bet on the beef industry? Okay, I love this question. I think this is so great. First of all, I just wanted to tell you and Philip congratulations. I'm so excited for y'all. Just wanted to say that.
Well, I'm going to pause. I don't think the podcast listeners know that I'm pregnant. I haven't officially announced it, so now they know.
I saw it on social media, so I thought it was public knowledge.
No, it's fine. I've been meaning to announce it anyway, so there we go.
I just want to tell you congratulations. I know that's so exciting for y'all. So why I bet on the beef industry? I truly believe beef is the most nutrient-dense protein available to humans. I truly believe that. I believe it is so delicious. It's got so many nutrients in it, and it is so needed, not only in America, but across the world. I think we take for granted protein here. Most people spend their days looking for food and looking for protein, high quality protein. And so that is why I bet on beef. And the other reason is no one celebrates with a chicken breast, okay? When we go out for anniversaries, for birthdays, for job promotions, whatever it is, most people, we're going to get a steak. We're throwing a steak on the grill. We're getting a good burger. And so it's really special, I think, to be a part of people's most special moments like that. So that's why I bet on beef.
Absolutely, and what a great reason. I resonate with all of that. I don't know anyone who's gone to celebrate with the chicken breast. So, Katey, we're going to be talking about kind of consumer perception today and what you are seeing in that space. So can you give the listeners a little bit of an idea of how you are engaging with beef consumers today?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm actually a first-generation rancher. I didn't grow up in the industry. We were definitely like a very big outdoors family. We weren't like some suburban family who had never seen grass or anything like that, but I don't come from a ranching family. And when I was 15, someone invited us to a beef event, and I absolutely fell in love with it. I was like, this is where I'm supposed to be. These are my people. I want to be involved in this. And I fell in love with the story of beef. And I didn't know really where all the, different life cycles and life stages from production to your plate of beef. And I just really fell in love with that story. And it is a good story. And consumers want to know that. And so I really fell in love too, not only with actual ranching, but with the more advocacy side, communicating with the public where their food comes from, because most people don't know. And I think we're definitely seeing a trend now. I kind of hate saying the C word, but since COVID, definitely people want to know more where their food comes from. They want to be more involved. They want to know their ranchers. They want to know that story. And so I think people do want to see where their food is coming from and how it works. They want to see the behind the scenes. And so I think that opens up a really cool door for us to be able to communicate that story, because it is a good story with our consumers.
Yeah, okay. So thank you for the background about how you didn't grow up in the industry. But you said you're first generation rancher. So where is that ranch located today?
Yeah, so I'm originally from Florida. I grew up in South Georgia and North Florida. I worked on a couple different ranches in Florida. I was really involved with the Florida Cattlemen's Association with some of their youth programs and leadership programs, and love that association and all the people I met there, and still have good friends there. But I met my husband, and his grandparents started a ranch in Oklahoma. So when his grandparents died, we took over the ranch in Oklahoma. So the ranch is actually third generation. It's a cow-calf operation. We're about 2 hours above Dallas in southeast Oklahoma. So we have a cow-calf operation here. We run the ranch together, and then we also sell beef direct to consumer. And I really love that balance of selling beef direct off the ranch, talking to consumers, selling that farm to table product, but then also being on the commercial side, selling calves commercially into the grocery supply chain.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a unique perspective that you get to see there. So with your direct to consumer sales, are a lot of those local sales, or are you shipping nationally?
We're doing both. So we definitely are shipping. Of course, a lot of my network friends and family are in Florida, and so I am shipping a lot back to Florida, which is really cool. I love being able to share our product with them. And then I also set up at the farmers market here in Durant, Oklahoma. We started that last year, which I thoroughly enjoyed. That was so much fun, just to be able to talk to your buyer face to face and answer their questions, and they get to put a face to the name and just explain where their food comes from. And then they follow us on Instagram or TikTok, and then we can they follow our videos, and I don't know, it's just so fun. I love doing that. And then we also do local ranch pickup and delivery. So we're doing both local and shipping nationwide.
So in that direct to consumer beef model, you have these customer interactions. When you're visiting with individuals, what are some of their concerns about beef, or what questions are they asking you? What do they want to know?
That's a good question. I think there is still a lot of confusion about the beef industry and how it works. And we have to give them some grace and self-compassion, because it is confusing. If you're not, I think we take it for granted when we're in the industry and we're doing it every day. It makes sense to us, but it's very confusing from the outside. People don't know what a cow-calf operation is. They don't know what a stalker is. They don't know what a feed yard is. They hear buzzwords like factory farms, and I have literally talked to people who believe that cattle are born in feed yards, live there their whole lives, have a miserable life, and they are abused, and then they are butchered. And we know that's just not true. So it's our job to communicate that. I think what makes the beef industry so different and so unique is when you think of other ag products like row crops, or I'm assuming chicken and pork. I am not a pork farmer, so I'm not an expert on that, but for most of farming and ag, it all happens in the same place. You're planting, you're harvesting, you're fertilizing, everything's happening right there. But the beef industry is so unique in that there's so many different stages to the life cycle of beef, from getting it from pasture to plate. And so that is our job, to communicate that with consumers, that, hey, they're starting here on a cow-calf operation. That beef you're buying at the grocery store started on a family farm, just like ours. And the average family farm is about 40 head, right? And so that's really cool that we get to communicate that. When I tell people that, they have no idea, and they're like, wow, that is so cool. And then explaining that they go onto a stalker, and then they go onto that feed yard, and how they are cared for there, and that it's only for a few months, and that they have a specially scientifically formulated feed, and then they go on to the processor, and that they are cared for at every stage, I think really opens their mind. And they're like, okay, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I'm not selling direct to consumer, but I remember in college there was a gal I was in entrepreneurship classes with, and she goes, "Can you tell me what a cow-calf operation is? All you people walk around talking about what it is, like everyone should know." And I was like, "Yes, I'm sorry, we do that. Please just ask." It's common language for us. So outside of the beef production lifestyle, what else do you see or experience consumer concerns around? Once you kind of get past that, even family farms have beef in grocery stores. Like, it's not this corporate giant to be scared of.
I am very much team beef. And when I'm talking to people, yes, I am selling a product. We are selling directly off the ranch. But I am also very intentional when I talk to people. I am team beef, and this might be bad for business, but I truly don't care where you get your beef from. If you get it from the grocery store, if you get it from me, if you get it from someone doing grass finished, I want people to know that it is a safe, wholesome, nutrient dense product, and there are options for how you choose to buy your beef. But no matter where you choose to get your beef, I think you need beef in your diet. It is incredibly nutrient dense. You're getting all 9 essential amino acids that your body can't make. You're getting zinc, iron, of course, protein, your B vitamins, choline, so many things that are necessary in the diet that no matter how your beef is finished, you're still getting those great benefits. And so I'm very much team beef. I think we really need to work on that as producers, not bashing each other. I think we're all on the same team here. So I'm very passionate about that too.
So you brought up that you have, pointed people in the direction of grass finished if that's truly what they prefer. Why have some people preferred that option over a grain finished product when you're visiting with them, whether that's at a farmer's market or online, etc.?
I wouldn't say I've pointed them to it per se, but I do think sometimes people think that is quote unquote a healthier option. So I will get that question sometimes of like, oh, well, isn't grass finished better? And a lot of times we have to take it back to grass fed versus grass finished. I think that's still a big missing piece for some people. I think a lot of consumers are starting to catch on, but a lot of people still don't know what fed and finished really means. And so a lot of times it's just explaining like, hey, even if this is a grain finished product, it still spent the majority of its life on grass. Your cattle are still free grazing, right? And so a lot of times I say that and they're like, oh, well, I didn't know that. I thought they were eating grain their entire life. And so really just kind of having those conversations. And then a lot of times too, we get into the nutrient differences. And I like to tell people that they're very similar. Your grass finish is going to be a tad bit more leaner. The taste and texture is going to be different. A lot of people prefer the taste, texture, marbling, and flavor of grain finished. I do. And so talking to them about that and that it's not an unhealthy product. It's not a bad product. There's virtually no difference in the nutritional value of grass finished versus grain finished. So I think just being able to tell people that is really enlightening for them.
Absolutely. So, I'm curious if there are any questions that have really caught you off guard, because what you've talked about up to this point, I feel like are some of the common ones that we are taught from a young age to advocate for, understand, how to explain to people when they have those questions. But have there been any topics or things that have come up that have caught you off guard when asked?
I think factory farm is still a really big buzzword right now. So I like to say, what is a factory farm? And they kind of stumble. They don't really know. Like they had this picture in their head or this idea of what they think it might be, but they kind of don't know. And so really just kind of digging in there with that, I think is a big one. Another thing I see kind of trending right now is about omega-3s and people saying that your grass-finished beef has more omega-3s, which yes, that is true. It typically does have more omega-3s. However, it does not have enough to make a significant difference in your body and in your diet. And so that has been one that I have really been seeing a lot lately. People saying like, oh, eat your grass-finished beef so you get more omega-3s. If you need more omega-3s in your diet, which yes, most of us do, I take an omega-3 supplement, you need to eat more fish or take a good omega-3 supplement. Eating grass-finished beef is not going to increase your omega-3 levels. So that's a big one I've been seeing. Something else that was shocking that I saw the other day, one of my friends sent me a reel on Instagram, and it was about Wagyu farming, which I know you've had Arlie on here, and I actually sent this to her, and I was like, this is really funny. But they were saying that Wagyu beef is unhealthy, and they feed them candy, and they showed Skittles, and I was like, Arlie, I don't raise Wagyu, so that's not my lane, but I know that we're not feeding our Wagyu cattle Skittles and candy and that they are not unhealthy. I think explaining to consumers genetics is a huge role in what we do. I don't even know the point of that reel, but just like those inflammatory things that are meant to, get your emotions going. I was like, Arlie, you got to make like a spin-off of feeding your cattle Skittles. That's a good one. That was pretty shocking. I haven't seen that before. But if there's any consumers listening, we're not feeding our cattle candy. Okay. So that was definitely shocking. And then the last one I'll say is there was actually a podcast I was listening to the other day, and it was with a very well-known doctor who I respect. And I'm not going to say his name, but if you're in the holistic space, you will know who he is. But he was saying how he went down to Brazil and he saw cattle free grazing on pastures, and they were moving their cattle with horses. And he was like, wow, this is beautiful. This is in sync with nature. This is conservation. This is how animals should be raised. I wish we did this in America. And it just really boiled my blood because I was like, this is what we do. We are not just raising our cattle in feed yards. They all start on those cow-calf operations, free grazing on family farms and ranches across America. A lot of us still work our cattle on horseback. And so I think that definitely shows there is a gap there and an opportunity for us to share how we work our cattle and where they start in America. So those are some things that I have seen lately.
So actually, one thing that's been kind of tough for me when I see that candy one going around, I've been to a feedlot where they're feeding gummy bears.
Oh, really?
Yes. I have not, kept track of this feedlot. Like, it was one I toured when I was in high school. It was somewhere in the eastern part of the States, I believe. But yeah, they were gummy bears was a part of.
But it's not the sole part of their diet.
Yeah, so that's always been interesting to me because I'm like, well, I can't say I've never seen it, but it's definitely not common practice for me. I think all of that's interesting, and it all depends on the operation too, because I know some people do hoop barn systems where cattle are in those systems, but they're very much healthy and taken care of, and it's not the majority of cattle for sure that are in the supply chain. Yeah.
I think another interesting point that I have talked to people about is they think that cattle are only fed corn. And I think it's important to communicate with them too how much cattle are a part of the overall food supply chain, just as far as cattle being fed distillers grains and byproducts and food that humans aren't going to eat that is otherwise going to go to waste. And so they do serve a critical part of the overall food supply chain, being able to take those feedstuffs and be able to upcycle it into high quality protein. I tell people, like the potatoes that don't make the cut, the tomatoes, Florida, we graze watermelon fields, like all of those things are also fed to cattle. It's not just your grains and your corn. So they really, really do serve an important purpose in the overall food supply chain for something that would otherwise go to waste, right?
You brought up that one of the doctors you were listening to was in the holistic space, and you and I are both involved in that space and have chatted offline about some of the things we see there. Do you still see people talking about there being glyphosate in their beef? Because that was a claim that absolutely shocked me when I first saw it. I was not sure how people were even coming to that conclusion. So is that still something you see kind of going around in that space, or do you think that one's kind of died down?
I do see it. I think it's another kind of buzzword right now, and that is something I've had conversations with consumers about, and I've been able to talk to them, and some people you're going to change their minds, some people you're not. And again, if they want to, there's so many different options in America, which is such a huge blessing of ways we can purchase beef, right? And so there have been studies that I have read about there not being glyphosate residue in beef. Cattle are ruminant animals. They have a 4-part stomach. They don't digest things the same way we do. They also have a relatively short life cycle. So there is not 20, 30 years for any buildup to happen in their systems. So I think when you explain those things to people, that they are free grazing most of their life, they can kind of take the emotion out of that, and then looking at the scientific studies as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm curious, when you're having these conversations with consumers, do you find that they are trusting you more as the beef producer telling them this information than what they're seeing on social media?
I think they do. I try to keep it really real and honest and build trust with my community online, but then also my friends and family in real life. They get to come out here and see what we do. I share what we do behind the scenes, and I have no reason to lie. And so a lot of people do come to me and ask me their beef questions, and I love being your beef girl, so bring it on.
As it pertains to the topic of consumer concerns with beef, what else do you want the ranchers listening to this podcast to know or understand, or what do you want to bring to light?
Don't bite the hand that feeds you. I think sometimes it's easy to get frustrated with the general public and with our consumers, and when they ask questions or when they want to know something or when they make a claim that they saw on social media. We are providing a food product. We need our consumers, right? And they just want to know. And yes, of course, some people are rude and we don't have to worry about that. But for the most part, we can answer their questions in a kind way, educate them about what we really do. I think we can be really transparent. You can show them videos and photos through social media. You can invite people out to your farm or ranch. You can set up at the farmer's market if you have a direct product to sell, to talk with people. Also, just when you're out and about, wearing your ranch merch around. Me and my husband were on a plane the other day, and I think he was wearing a hat or something. I probably had a ranch hat on, and people ask us like, oh, do y'all raise cattle or things like that? And so we get to talk with them, and they'll ask if we sell beef and all these different questions. So you can create those conversations in your real life too. You can be a leader in your home, in your community, in your circle of influence. It doesn't have to be some huge platform or some social media influencer with hundreds of thousands of followers. Don't let that intimidate you. You do have a story to tell. Go be you. No one else can do that. And people want to know what you're doing. The things that we take for granted, even just simple chores, filling water troughs, feeding cattle, petting them if you can. Like, I've got some cattle I can pet here. And just those little things that we take for granted, people want to see that and they love that. And they're like, okay, these are not abused animals. They are living a great life with people who care about them. We care about this lifestyle. We care about our animals. We care about our land. And I think people really want to see that.
Absolutely. So, Katey, as we wrap up today, my final question for you is, if you could go back to your first 5 years of ranching, what would you do differently?
First 5 years. Gosh, the first 5 years were so fun because I was just like soaking it all in. I was interning on a couple different ranches. I think I would ask more questions. Just really ask all the questions. There are no stupid questions. Don't be afraid to ask something. I was really learning so much because, again, I didn't grow up in the industry, and I have been blessed with the absolute best mentors, and I'm so grateful for that. And I would just ask more questions, get involved. If there's a sector of the industry that you want to know more about, find a way to get involved, apply for things, leadership programs, get involved in your local association, your state association. Network with people, go meet people. If you want to go see how someone does their operation, go visit them. Ask them if you can come shadow them. And don't expect anything in return, okay? So I think that's what I would do in my first 5 years, is I would just ask all the questions, get involved in any way I could. And that's coming more from a first generation perspective, but I do think that that applies to anybody.
Awesome. Well, what great advice. And I agree that it can apply to anybody. We should all be asking more questions about everything we're doing each day. Katey, where can people go to connect with you online?
Our ranch account is at Zero Cattle Ranch, spelled out Zero. And then my account is at Katey Johnson Creative, Katey.
All right. Well, I will make sure those are also included in the description. Folks, remember The best way to support this podcast and all your other favorite podcasts is to leave a rating or review, and of course share it with a friend who's going to find this story and information valuable to their own life. But with that, happy ranching, folks. Hey folks, have I told you about my all-time favorite seasoning? It's called Pluck. Whether I am grilling steaks, making spaghetti, or wanting to add more flavor to veggies, I reach for Pluck. Pluck is not just a regular seasoning mix. It contains beef organs for added flavor and nutrients. It's tasty and a fun way to add more meat to your meals. You can learn more at eatpluck.com and get a 15% discount by using the code Shaye Wanner. That code is spelled ShayeWanner, and I will include the link and the code in the show notes.